So, you want to own a KFC. Most people imagine it as a straightforward transaction. You pay for the name, they hand you a bucket, and the customers take care of the rest. You're backed by one of the most recognized brands on earth. The chicken sells itself. The Colonel's face is on the sign. What could possibly go wrong? As it turns out, quite a lot, starting with the Colonel himself. In 1964, Harland Sanders, the real man behind the white suit, sold Kentucky Fried Chicken to a group of investors led by a former Kentucky governor named John Y. Brown Jr. The price was $2 million. Sanders was 73 years old. The business was getting too large for him to manage, and he walked away thinking he'd made a reasonable deal. He kept a $40,000 annual salary, guaranteed advertising appearances, and the right to call himself Colonel for the rest of his life. 7 years later, Brown and his partners flipped the company to a packaged foods conglomerate called Hoobline Incorporated for $285 million. Sanders, watching from the sidelines, described the feeling of being left out. Then he sued them for $122 million. The lawsuit claimed Hoobline was deliberately blocking him from franchising a new restaurant with his wife, and that they were slapping his image on products he'd never endorsed, pastries, dairy items, things that had nothing to do with fried chicken. The case settled for $1 million and a promise that Sanders could keep training cooks. In exchange, he agreed to stop publicly criticizing the company. He didn't keep that promise for long. In a 1978 interview, Sanders described KFC's gravy as horrible and compared it to wallpaper paste. He called the new crispy recipe a damn fried doughball stuck on some chicken. A KFC franchisee in Bowling Green, Kentucky, sued him for libel. Kentucky Supreme Court dismissed the case on the grounds that Sanders was criticizing the company generally, not any specific restaurant. The man whose face is still on every bucket in the world died in 1980, having spent the last decade of his life in lawsuits with the company he built. That is, in one very concentrated story, the entire economics of owning a KFC franchise. Before you sign anything, here is what it actually costs to get your name on a location. The entry investment for a newly constructed KFC outlet in the United States runs between $1,852,825 and $3,771,550. That range covers land, construction, kitchen equipment, signage, furniture, the initial inventory, and the training costs to get your staff through KFC's mandatory 4-week program at a designated corporate facility. If you're buying a remodeled or reopened existing location instead, the range drops to roughly $1,052,825 to $2,521,550, still comfortably over $1 million at the low end. On top of the construction number, you write a $45,000 check for the franchise fee before a single brick is laid. That fee buys you the right to operate under the KFC name, access to the supply chain, and a protected territory, which, under the current franchise agreement, is defined as the smaller of a 1.5-mile radius from your location or a geographically bounded area around your outlet. That protection disappears the moment you fall out of compliance with your franchise agreement. And compliance is not optional. Everything from the temperature at which the chicken is cooked to the specific font on your menu board is specified and enforced. Then the ongoing fees begin, and they never stop. KFC charges a royalty of 4 to 5% of your gross revenue every single month, with a minimum of $1,440, even if the location loses money. On top of that, you owe a 4.5% national advertising fee, also calculated on gross revenue, which funds the television campaigns and digital marketing that KFC's corporate team controls. You have no say in how that money is spent. You pay it regardless of whether the campaigns work in your market. Add those two fees together, and you're handing 9 to 9.5% of everything you make back to corporate before you've paid a single employee. Now let's look at what comes in. The average KFC location in the United States generated approximately $1.28 million in net sales in 2024. That is the median figure across 2,881 domestic single-brand outlets open for at least 1 year as of the end of fiscal year 2024. In a well-trafficked suburban location with a drive-through, which is where the better-performing units consistently sit, annual revenue can push toward $1.6 million or slightly above. On that revenue, your food cost, the raw chicken, oil, sides, beverages, packaging, runs roughly 28 to 32%. Labor, including hourly crew, shift managers, and the general manager's salary, consumes another 25 to 30%. Rent or mortgage on the building adds another 8 to 10% depending on market. Utilities, maintenance, insurance, and miscellaneous operational costs account for a further 5 to 7%. Before a single corporate fee is paid, you've spent approximately 70 to 75% of your revenue just keeping the lights on and the fryers running. After the royalty, the advertising fee, and all operating costs, a well-run single KFC location generates a net profit of approximately $95,000 to $160,000 per year. That is a net margin of 6 to 10% on a business that required an investment of $1.5 million to $2.5 million to open. On a single unit, the payback period, the time it takes for cumulative profits to equal your original investment, is somewhere between 10 and 20 years. Not 3 years, not 5 years, 10 to 20. That number is not a rumor or an estimate from a disgruntled franchisee. It's the arithmetic of the actual disclosed figures from KFC's own franchise disclosure document. Here is the part that KFC's corporate recruitment materials do not lead with. In 2024, KFC's U.S. sales fell 5.2%, while Raising Cane's grew its sales 32% year over year, and Chick-fil-A grew 5.4%. KFC lost ground in the very market where it was born. The brand that defined American fried chicken for half a century is no longer the category leader, the quality leader, or the growth story. Popeyes, a chain that opened its first restaurant 21 years after KFC, now consistently outperforms it in consumer preference surveys. KFC's own president for the U.S. market acknowledged the situation without ambiguity. In a public statement in July 2025 launching what the company called the Kentucky Fried Comeback campaign, she said, and these are the actual words, "We're well aware of the latest fried chicken rankings. You, as a franchisee who spent $2 million to open your location last year, are now operating inside a brand that is running a comeback campaign. Your royalties are funding that campaign. Your advertising fees are paying for the television spots. The company decides the messaging, the promotions, and the discounts. You execute whatever they instruct at your own cost. This is the arrangement you signed up for." But the royalty structure is only the surface of the problem. Yum! Brands, the parent company that owns KFC alongside Taco Bell and Pizza Hut, operates what is known in the industry as an asset-light model. Yum! Does not own your building. It does not own your equipment. It does not employ your staff. It does not carry the debt you took out to open your location. As of the most recent count, KFC operates over 30,000 restaurants globally, of which Yum! Directly owns fewer than 100 in the United States. Everything else is franchised. What this means in practical terms is that every risk in the business sits with you, and every predictable revenue stream flows to them. When chicken prices spike due to supply chain disruption, as they did repeatedly between 2021 and 2023, your food cost percentage climbs and your margin shrinks. Yum! Still collects its percentage of your gross sales regardless. When labor costs rise because your state raises the minimum wage, as California did to $20 per hour for fast food workers in 2024, your labor line expands and your profit contracts. Yum! Still collects. When KFC runs a national promotional discount that brings in high volume at low margins, you execute the promotion, bear the cost, and Yum! Collects its percentage of the gross. In 2023, Yum! Brands generated $1.7 billion in total revenues. Its operating margin was approximately 38%. The average KFC franchisee's operating margin in the same year was between 6 and 10%. The parent company, which owns none of the buildings and takes none of the operational risk, earns margins nearly 4 times higher than the people who actually run the restaurants. This is not a coincidence. It is the design. There is one way the math begins to change, and every experienced franchise operator understands it. The single-unit model is not the business. It is the audition. KFC, like every major quick-service franchise, is structurally built for multi-unit operators. When you own 5 locations, your overhead does not multiply by 5. You need one regional manager instead of 5 separate ones. You negotiate better terms with local suppliers. You can move staff between locations during peak periods. You share training infrastructure. The fixed costs spread across a larger revenue base, and the margin on each additional location is meaningfully better than the first. The operators making serious money inside the KFC system are not the ones running a single location in a suburb. They are the ones who spent 5 years proving they could execute at one location, then leverage that track record to open 10 more. According to Yum's own disclosures, more than 80% of KFC's global growth in recent years has come from a small number of large, publicly traded franchisee groups. These are not individuals who own one restaurant. They are companies that own hundreds. Colin Delia started as a team member at 21 years old. He now owns 6 locations in the Tampa Bay market. Lisa, who came from a marketing background, built 21 locations across San Diego. These are the success stories that KFC's recruitment materials promote. What they do not mention is how long the ramp took, how much capital had to be deployed across multiple units before the economics became attractive, or what the failure rate looks like for operators who tried to scale and couldn't. The franchise failure rate for a single KFC unit is quoted at under 1%, which sounds reassuring until you understand what it measures. It counts locations that close permanently. It does not count operators who sold their franchise at a loss, operators who were bought out by corporate after underperforming, or operators who technically kept the location open while operating at a loss for years before finding a buyer. And then there is China. This is the part of the story that no one expects when they think about KFC. KFC is the #1 fast food chain in China, with over 9,000 locations, more than triple its entire US presence. In a country where McDonald's has struggled to gain the same cultural foothold, KFC arrived in 1987, adapted aggressively to local tastes, and became something that it never quite managed to remain in its home market, the aspirational choice. In China, KFC is not the brand you eat when you want something quick and cheap. It is where families go to celebrate. It is where young couples go on first dates. The Chinese menu includes congee, egg tarts, and rice dishes alongside the fried chicken. The stores are cleaner and larger than their American counterparts. The service is faster. The economics reflect this. Chinese KFC locations, operated primarily by a publicly traded company called Yum China, which was spun off from Yum Brands in 2016, generate significantly higher average unit volumes than their American equivalents. Yum China, which operates KFC and Pizza Hut in mainland China, reported revenues of over $11 billion in 2023 from a country where KFC didn't exist 40 years ago. Meanwhile, in the country where KFC was invented, in the state where the Colonel cooked his first batch of pressure-fried chicken in a gas station, the brand is running a comeback campaign and apologizing to its own customers. So let's build the actual math on your investment. Scenario 1. You open a single new KFC in a mid-tier suburban market. Total investment, $2.2 million, financed through a combination of $800,000 of your own capital and a $1.4 million SBA loan at current rates. Annual debt service on that loan runs approximately $180,000. Your location performs at the median, $1.28 million in gross revenue. After food cost, labor, rent, royalties, advertising fee, insurance, and utilities, your net profit before debt service is approximately $120,000. After the loan payment, you are left with roughly $940,000 negative. You lose money in year 1, and likely year 2 as well, until the location builds its customer base and your operational efficiency improves. By year 3 to 4, assuming performance holds, you are generating $25,000 to $40,000 in free cash flow annually after all costs. On an $800,000 equity investment, that is a return of 3 to 5%. Scenario 2. You are a multi-unit operator with 8 locations across 2 markets. Total revenue across all units, approximately $11 million annually. Your overhead is shared. Your regional manager earns $120,000 and covers all 8 locations. Your negotiated rent terms are better than a single-unit operator's. Your blended net margin across the portfolio runs 9 to 11%. Annual profit, $990,000 to $1.2 million. On a total equity investment of perhaps $4 to $5 million deployed over 5 years to build the portfolio, that is a 20 to 25% annual return on equity. This is a real business. The difference between Scenario 1 and Scenario 2 is not luck or location. It is time, capital, and the willingness to treat the first location as infrastructure rather than income. The twist, at the end of all of this, is the one thing the financial analysis consistently obscures. You are not buying a restaurant. You are buying a system. The system tells you what to cook, how to cook it, what temperature to fry it at, what font to put on your menu, what music to play in your dining room, and what discount to offer on Tuesday afternoons. It tells you which supplier to buy your chicken from and what price you will pay for it. It controls the advertising you fund, but do not create. It can terminate your agreement if you deviate from any of these specifications in ways it deems material. In exchange, it gives you a brand that 3.7 billion people across 150 countries recognize on site. It gives you a supply chain you could never negotiate alone. It gives you a failure rate of under 1% in an industry where 60% of independent restaurants close within their first year. And in the markets where it still works, in China, in Southeast Asia, in Sub-Saharan Africa, where KFC is still growing aggressively, it gives you access to some of the highest volume fast food locations on earth. The Colonel sold the thing he built for $2 million. He watched it get flipped for $285 million 7 years later. He spent the rest of his life suing the company that made his face famous for changing the gravy recipe. He called it wallpaper paste. He was probably right. But $285 million in 1971 is approximately $2.1 billion in 2025 dollars. The people who made that money were not the ones who cooked the chicken. They were the ones who understood that the chicken was never really the product. The franchise agreement was